Hello, hello. Hello, Caroline. So we're going to be starting the live soon. For those who are just joining now, my name is Curtis Lewis. I've just joined Shiny and I'm going to be doing a series of interviewing different directors about their journey and how they've become directors. So there's going to be a few of these coming along. So if you're maybe wondering about how they've done what they've done and how they've got to where they've got to, we're going to be asking all the questions. And also feel free to ask questions as well. If anything jumps up in the conversation, just wave your hand, ask a question, and we'll get to it. Cool. So just to talk a little bit about who's joining us today, we have Charlie Dennis, who is a writer-director from Staffordshire, and who picked up a lot of attention from his 2021 film, Silent World, which involved a deaf person going through a deadly catastrophe. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that, and then also just how he's sort of essentially gone through his journey, and from that point, and also a little bit before, because we want to get like the full picture, you know what I mean? So but just a reminder for anyone just joining again, feel free to ask questions, because we want to ask the questions. We want to make sure that we're getting a good picture, because this is also helpful for any emerging directors that are thinking about, oh, I want to direct, or maybe you're in a stage where you're like, okay, I don't know quite how to navigate the industry, or how to navigate making films but then making it a career. So we're going to be talking about that, along with how he's signed to Lowkey Films. So again, ask the questions. Right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to invite Charlie on, and we are going to have him on. Right. Hello.
Good afternoon. How
Good
you going?
afternoon.
How are you? This is fun.
I know, right? Okay, right. I'm gonna jump straight into this because we've not got long, right?
Cool.
Lovely to meet you.
And you?
Um, but we gotta give the people what they want. Cool. So the first like vague question I want to ask you is, how do you define the work that you do?
Um, I think it's for me. I think it's evolved. I think now it is identifying the sort of everyday, I guess, and finding ways to elevate it. Um, Elevating the everyday, in a sense. Sort of, I've become more and more attached to like genre and reimagining scenarios. One to I think to create like entertainment and excitement out of something that maybe historically has not been exciting, to get people watching it. Um, but yeah, so that it can appeal to the most amount of people. I think that sort of thread through narrative and commercial that is really interesting. And there's nothing wrong with sort of making your film or spot, whatever it is, as commercial as possible to get the most amount of people to enjoy it and to watch it. So it's sort of like I for me it's identifying that and finding out how it can sort of like go to the most amount of people while still having the impact it needs, and that
Amazing.
can be translated in many different ways, I guess.
Well, with that, what I want to talk a little bit about is your journey and how you got started essentially with silent film. But I also want to know a little bit, give me a tidbit before and then after, but let's go straight into Silent Word. What was it like working on that film? Yeah.
Silent World was cool. It's so Sign Kid, as he's what the film is based on. He's in the film. He is a deaf rapper, a insanely talented multi hyphenate. Um, he for instance, he's created a whole dictionary of sign slang that doesn't exist in BSL, but sort of helps him sort of assimilate the language closer to like slang, like because it's very a formal language, BSL.
So then, how did
Um,
you? So sorry to cut you. So then, how did you know to sort of like what drove you to like creating a story about that specifically?
So he had made with Lowkey Films before like he'd made a music video with him called Dumbass, which is his experience about being like people thinking he's deaf and dumb, and he wanted to sort of like he's like I'm deaf, not dumb. He'd made this amazing music video. He had got a bit of money from the Arts Council on the back end of COVID, and he wrote this rap about his experience during COVID as a deaf person and his feeling of isolation. And he wanted to make this sort of like musical sort of film, I guess. It was a rap, but and I read the rap, and there was so much in there, and there was so much sort of like reality that was sort of terrifying. And I was worried that people didn't want to watch a film about COVID just on the back end of COVID. So I wanted to, I like spoke to him. I was like, I rewrote it and into a film, and I
Okay.
reimagined it into this sort of like heightened sort of dystopian atmosphere that I thought would be the best way to get people watching it to be able to sort of like, you can watch it as a audience member and not even sort of think about the fact that he's deaf, or you can sort of like relate to something a bit deeper and try and experience it through his perspective as a deaf person. But that was me writing it. And then I said to him, like, I was thinking we were going to get a deaf director on board. But he said something interesting to me, which sort of stuck with me, which was he said, "My community is not the problem; it's yours."
Ooh,
And that was his way of like saying, like, I don't want deaf films to get circulated within the deaf
so
community
to
where it doesn't
broaden it
get
out
watched.
and
Exactly. And then it's
yeah,
sort of, that stuck with me even now, and the work I do now, and on the roller from that. It's just, and that for me like links in with lots of other different things, not just about the deaf community. So I sort of like worked with him and with the deaf community and sort of consultants and stuff to figure out that bridge to connect to those two communities,
and
I guess, because he is
having
completely,
that accessibility.
yeah, like we are the people in the relation to the deaf community who like consume like more media in a sense and have the sort of like wider network to be able to put those stories on screen. And like it's an amazing opportunity for us to create that bridge. And it was
Yeah. I just want to speak a little bit about the aftermath as well, because it kind of sounds like you kind of essentially picked up on a point that you realized like this is an issue and then kind of made a narrative around that. Well, the narrative being the narrative and then essentially extending, tackling other issues. What I want to speak about then is in terms of like that garnering a lot of attention afterwards, like what was it like kind of then entering it into festivals and then winning the awards that it won and then also getting the attention that you got? What was that specifically like?
I mean, I think that the key thing that if it didn't win awards, if it didn't win anything, that was fine. But it needed to sort of like have a sense of purpose. Regardless, it
Mm,
needed to comment on the issues that the hearing community sort of like overlooks within the deaf
mm.
community. So I really, most important thing for me was for like when the deaf community sort of watch it and sort of view it, how they react to it. And I feel quite confident that there's been some positive reactions to that. Like, it particularly with some of like the deaf festivals that we submitted it to. And I think just it's, there's always like some people are going to be pleased, some people are going to be pleased, some people just like the sort of like stories
So,
on screen. So that was the most important thing, I think,
yeah.
just finding a way to represent that in a new way,
So,
in putting it on screen in a way that maybe they haven't really been seen before, like in this sci-fi landscape. Like I didn't want to make just like a kitchen sink
mhm.
drama that's like, oh look how like bad they have it. Like no, let's elevate it, let's sort of like make it exciting.
So for you, it was more about selling the experience, and it's almost like it kind of seems like there was this element of like, I really care about this. I really care about like this, this narrative, this cause, and how this essentially extends on from here, not just like,
Yeah,
oh, I want to make a film. It was like, how do we sell this and how do we sell the message, but also entertain people? It sounds like you're kind of tackling
yeah,
different things at the same time.
which,
What I
which
want
is
to
like
then
yeah.
Yeah. But in terms of like, because as a director, you know, I want to sort of speak a bit about what you were working on before, but as a director, like a lot of people, you know, work on things that they want to work on, and that they care about, and causes that they care about. But then how did you sort of like bridge the gap between sort of like, okay, this is the thing that I care about, and I also need to eat
Yeah,
and make money. So because obviously it did garner attention. Obviously that wasn't the attention was to kind of get this message out. People need to care. It's our community that, you know, that need the education really and truly, of this experience. But then in terms of your personal experience of like, I'm a director, I'm a writer, like what was it like trying to bridge the gap of, okay, I'm trying to get paid work, I've made this film, it's got this attention, where do we go from here? Because I feel like there is that gap that a lot of filmmakers have that don't quite know how to like sort of surf the wave of attention
yeah.
essentially.
So on the back of that, I think in general, from my experience, agencies and production companies will respond really well if it's something that you care a lot about and it's an important topic. And if you can find a way to weave in, it's not like sort of like commercializing it, but like if you can weave a way that it connects to their brand, then they're like even more excited about it. So after this, there was an open brief for a champion, and we'd worked with the agency before, and it was about creators with purpose, and they were identifying different creators or creatives around the world that they thought like had purpose. And immediately I was like, this sounds like Sign Kid. This is perfect. Like he's this deaf rapper. He makes his own beats. He wears a beat vest to feel the vibrations. Like he is like an insanely talented guy. It sounds like he sort of represents this sort of like brand campaign that you're doing. So I pitched that to him. I pitched him to Champion, and they loved it. And I wrote it's a little like narrative about his sort of like story, kind of like a branded documentary. And then they just rolled it. They gave me sort of like full creative freedom in a sense. It was something a limited budget, but it was a chance for me to sort of again get a story, get a community on screen in a new way that isn't necessarily sort of like common there in that space. Like you don't see a lot of in this case sort of like deaf creatives or people as the forefront of like a huge sort of like marketing campaign like Champion, and they just responded really well with it. We even created they had this sort of tagline which is champion what moves you, and in BSL champion is like I'm a champion, but that didn't make sense with the sort of like verbiage. It was like champion what moves you, what do you champion? So we had to create a new sign
It kind of
for
sounds
that.
like it's kind of
Yeah,
sounds like your biggest sort of like superpower is like almost like empathy for things that aren't seen. So it's almost like you kind of try to lend an eye to where things are being unseen.
I think that feels important to me throughout, yeah, commercials, advertising, narrative, and like life as well. I think finding ways to represent communities maybe even that have historically been marginalized in any sense, and finding a way to put them on screen that isn't like depressing and bleak and be like, oh look how like sad this is, bring it to life. There's so much creativity there,
Mm.
like in and this isn't just referring to the deaf community. This is like anywhere. Like it's and everybody's really receptive to that. People want to work with it. The deaf community I was speaking to about both the Champion shoot and the Silent World film, there was just so much positivity around it. They were like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it, let's help." Like
Mm.
it was just, yeah, it was just exciting. There's just really good energy there, which yeah,
Yeah. In terms of how I want to talk a little bit more about your career because I want to speak about say three things. We'll do a quick fire session. You signed with Lowkey Films.
yeah,
Want to hear about that and how that came about. And you were also a part of a Jordan Peele sort of like writing initiative.
yeah,
Need to speak about
yeah.
that because iconic. So let's just jump back. How did you? So for those who don't know, Charlie Dennis is signed with Lowkey Films. Can you talk about a bit about the process of getting signed and then also the interaction? How did it happen? Did you message them? Did they message you? Give me the deets.
So that was I think that was it was not a usual sort of format. It was very early on in my relationship with them became very early on in my sort of like career, I guess. I'd won whilst I was trying to like hustle as like a filmmaker, trying to get like directing work whilst doing other things like getting other streams of income in.
How are
There
you
was
getting direct? How are you like trying to get direct
so
work?
was with I won a brief from a company, a website called Talent House, and it was like one of these open briefs, like, oh, we want to like hear from filmmakers. We have this is our brand line, this is our tagline. We want to hear ideas. And it was like an open submission, submit to that, and I won it. And it was, I think, 13 grand or something to make an
Okay.
advert for Nicorette. And it was like me as like a young filmmaker. I was like, "Say, we can do
Like
so
loads
much
of
with that. It's
money.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, look how much money it is." And I produced it up until the point where I couldn't anymore, if
Right.
that makes sense, when it got
Yeah, yeah,
too
yeah. It got
scary
too
and
big.
had extras, and I was like, I need help. So then that's when I got in touch with Lowkey Films, and I got them to
Okay.
sort of help me out on it. And then we just got on really well. It was really nice, and they were really open. They were really like, "We like your ideas. We think you're really great. Like, we'll do this pretty much for like a deferred fee, and we'll help you produce this. If we can sort of like share the love with it." And I was like, "Amazing, yeah." And then so since then, I had another job come in. I was like, "Let's send it to Lowkey," and I worked with them again. And then after it, they sort
Oh,
of repaid the
wow.
favor. So it was quite like an organic relationship.
Yeah.
I contacted them to produce something that already had some money behind it. And then it was just like the relationship was just really lovely. They have a really good sort of like mindset and ethos about what they want to do, and in sort of like with their work, it's not just about sort of creating work, it's what's behind it and the vision with that. And so that just matched with everything that I wanted to do. But that all came from an open briefing platform on a website called Talent House, which is like you just send in like an idea, and if they like it, they'll yeah.
Would you say that, since signing with like, what would you say the key difference was from when you were working before with Lowkey Films? Like in terms of like how, I'm talking how you write scripts or however you do anything before Lowkey Films to now. So like, what was that sort of like transition of being signed and and not signed? Work sort of, I guess, work ethic and the specific things that you're doing.
Mm.
Has anything like changed?
Uh, I think they've just given me more like security and like a great soundboard for ideas, and even connecting me with the right people. Like they connected me to Sign Kid. They'd already made the music video with Sign Kid. They knew the stuff I wanted to do, and it's like if I've got an idea or I'm writing stuff, like I will run it through them. I'll speak to them. It's that sort of like clarity, knowing where they can push me and knowing where like, okay, how about this is a great idea, but let's sort of like, how can we produce it? We want to make the best possible film for you, or where can we, I don't know, where can we sort of send it out? What can we do with it? So it's great having that somebody else by your side to like hold your hand when you need to. Like directing and filmmaking is super lonely sometimes. Everybody knows, like just writing, you sometimes need a little bit of validation. Sometimes you need a little bit of like love with your work. Like, is it any good? Is it shit? Like, and they'll be like, no, it's great. Let's build on it. Here's some ideas. Here's how we can improve it. Here's another like, here's a DP we've worked with. Why don't you guys have a chat? Like just having that, I don't know, a little family to talk to is has been a big difference in terms of how you
Yeah.
approach stuff.
Speaking of that, I really want to quickly get on to two more questions. What was the No Drama initiative like with working with Jordan Peele? What was that like? Or under the
It's
initiative?
so that's happening now. That is like still going on, and
Oh, so this is
this is now.
okay, cool.
This is current. This is like insane. Like I had like a Zoom with Jordan Peele like not too long ago. It like doesn't even make sense. So they are identifying sort of filmmakers like the new like genre who want to do genre work. It's called No Drama. They don't want to see drama. It's got to be genre. And that again, that was an open platform. That was like it's in collaboration with Universal Pictures and TIFF. So it was a script submission. I had the script written. I sort of like sent it over as part of the submission. Didn't think I'd ever get it. Like load of interviews later, I'm like one of 5 filmmakers selected to make this sort of film with Monkey Paw, with the chance to then make it into a feature film with them. And it's yeah, it sort of like echoes everything Monkey Paw does with the work I want to do, like what Jordan Peele did with sort of Get Out. Like he made a film about a horror film about racism, like all the microaggressions like black people face when they're in a white environment. But he didn't do just a film about, he made a horror film, an exciting film that anybody could watch.
Mm,
But the monsters in it are the white people. That, like, it's he
Mm.
took the everyday and elevated it. Like, it's so that's what the script that I'm working with Monkey Paw is about, and that sort of like hopefully echoes the work that I want to sort of weave in with commercial and um yeah, so that's happening now, and it's
Amazing.
we're shooting in March, and yeah, I'm actually wrecking today. That's
Oh,
why I'm in my car. Like,
so you're on
yeah,
location.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna speed forward. We've got a question. Is it harder to get work if you're? Is it harder to get work if you're signed?
So it depends on your relationship with production companies. Some people will sign you and it'll be like an exclusive agreement, and you should only really be working with that production company.
Okay.
Others have a far more fluid approach to it, and it's we understand you're signed. We want to keep that conversation if you're working with other people, but if the relationship should be there and the communication stream should be there, that if like you're not getting the work, like you need to find work, and it's better, I think it's better on both parties for that to be clear. Like, if you can sort of like make a film with another production company, but then you're not sort of like crossing lines, and as long as that open conversation is there, I don't think it's necessarily harder. But that, I think that always deals with your, depends on your own personal relationship with that production company. Some production companies very exclusive, and some people like don't mind if the net is cast wider, I guess. um
Okay.
but I
I
guess what is good about being signed is that you've got the validation and you've got the briefs going through that production company. Yeah.
I have two more questions, if you allow me.
Yeah,
And
let's talk.
they're more for the audience members that are essentially wanting to kind of get into directing and or are directors and they're trying to sort of like essentially make their
Yeah.
way. Um, are there any major mistakes that you've made along in your journey that you've like learned from that everybody should know? Like just going into this, and what would you say to future directors? Like, if you had to give any advice, like, you know, these things you don't live by or don't do live by, or whatever you want to sort of like give to the next um, baton
Yeah,
handing off, basically.
definitely. It's something like I'm still figuring out myself as well. Like, I'm still making all these mistakes. I still feel like I'm in early stages of my career as like a director, particularly commercials, and only in the past, like, I don't know, a few years, I've decided just to be a bit more specific with the films that I sort of pitch and what I write and what I go for. The mistake that I think made, which is sort of like not impacted it, but it's meant it's a slower process to get the films that I actually want to make, is that I don't think I was hard enough on the the stuff that I want to make, if that makes sense. Like, if a brief came in or if a script came in, and I was like, I sent in my idea, and they didn't quite like it. They wanted it a bit more than script. I've sort of been like, okay, yeah, I guess I can do it like that, and I've made the film.
Right.
And what I'm left is with like the agency's film or the client's film, and it doesn't feel like me. And then it doesn't go onto my reel. It doesn't go onto my work. I don't put it out anywhere. And I feel like I did that a lot in the early
So
stages because I was
you're
just excited
standing,
to be getting
so
work.
essentially standing by you, you feel like people should stand by their voice a bit more.
Yeah, because you get really worried that, oh, if I say no, this isn't for me, or if they don't like my idea, they won't want to work with me. But I actually think that's the opposite. I think people really respect and recognize authenticity with your voice. And yeah, it might mean you don't win the job that time, but it's like, what's better, winning the job and making a commercial that you don't put anywhere, or saying no and then they come back to you, be like, we loved your idea about this, it was really great. So I think I just said yes to a lot of work that now I wouldn't say yes to, and it doesn't feel like my voice. It doesn't feel like my work. It feels like I've just been a director for hire
Mm,
for a client, and it's a bit. You get the work, you get, I don't know, you learn a lot on in that journey, but you have to kind of make those mistakes along the way to figure
yeah.
out what you want to do. It's really
Yeah.
hard to know. I've only just really figured it out in the past sort of like 3 years, I guess. Like, I was making like very different work a while back.
So actually, I want to talk a bit about that just really quickly. Sorry, Caroline. I know we're going slightly over, and also Charlie. We just had a question from Meg. What age slash point did you start getting into directing? She's currently more doing short form digital content, but wants to branch into filmmaking, directing. Any advice?
So um I don't know, it's that what you're already doing, I guess, is good. You need to like learn on like as you go in a sense. It's you will need, I think, going into it, it's so hard to sort of like, I think maybe only in the past sort of like 3 or 4 years is my income been solely generated through directing. Before, like, I was taking editing jobs, I used to AD for a little bit as well. So um it's hard to sort of like make that full time unless you've done lots of things like leading up to it. So it's sort of making sure you've got some like things to fall back on, I guess, and then taking the risks, and allowing yourself to sort of like, okay, I'm gonna make a short, I'm gonna make a music video, I'm gonna do something, make a spec ad if I can, save up some money to sort of represent the stuff I want to make, and then that can sort of like add to the reel, add to the portfolio. I can approach production companies like, this is the sort of stuff I want to make. They might take a sort of like chance on you. Yeah, so it's I wouldn't ever advise anyone just to drop everything they're doing to then try and like move into directing. Like they can work hand in hand and they can live simultaneously until they, and you will know yourself when they can't, and that's a good thing because you'll be directing. And does that answer the question? I don't
I
know.
think that perfectly answers the
Yeah.
question. And I think actually I'm gonna end it there because I think that perfectly signs it off. Thank you so much, Charlie, for like taking the time, especially like being on a project right now. Good luck to you. And
Thanks to
this is
you.
gonna be many anyone watching this is gonna be many sort of series in the sort of episodes in the series of just like speaking to different directors. And I'm so glad that we were able to kick it off with you. So thank you
Awesome.
so
Yeah, it's been
much.
cool. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining, and we're going to end it there. Take
Thanks,
care.
Dave.
Just make sure that you, check these out because they're going to be left on the Instagram page. So if you ever want to watch these at a different point and you're feeling a bit low or you're like, I need motivation, come back to these. Anyway,
I'm going to be
take
watching them.
care.
Love to the shiny guys and everyone. See ya. Thank you.
Bye.